A shift in models this afternoon pointing to the potential that soon-to-be Hurricane Erin could scrape or even make landfall along the U.S. coastline. Welcome in, folks. Great to see you on this wonderful Wednesday, August 13th. And yeah, sure enough, we did see a shift in some of the afternoon model guidance. I'm going to give you a no-nonsense analysis of that. I'll tell you if it's something that could stick or hold, or maybe just a one-off, and give you all the possibilities on where soon-to-be Hurricane Erin will be traversing. Now, if you're new to the channel, welcome. My name's Gerald. I'm a meteorologist at WCCB Charlotte. If you haven't already, go ahead and like the video, subscribe, and hit the bell for the latest notifications so you're always up to date with the newest model data, how that data is changing, and how that could affect your forecast. Alrighty, folks, let's dive right on into things and get right into it today. A lot to talk about, and sure enough, you can see next to me, this is the latest run of the King Euro, one of the more reliable computer models that we have. And you can see Hurricane Erin there by the middle of next week getting very close to the United States coastline. In fact, some of the outer bands would even scrape states like North Carolina with a model run like this. Now, if you've been paying attention this week, I've told you the most likely scenario is for this storm to go out to sea, and I still think that's the case. Although we did see a shift in this model and a couple others today, much closer to the United States. So we'll be analyzing all of that here throughout the video today, and you can see why, with such a strong storm like is being projected here by the European, every inch closer to land that it is, the higher impacts could become. Now, before we get ahead of ourselves and we start getting all crazy into some of these individual model runs, let's just zoom out for a second. Let's look at where the storm is now and what the latest cone from the National Hurricane Center calls for. Now, remember, this cone goes out 7 days from now. So this is from now all the way to next Wednesday, and you can definitely see that potential to have a major hurricane. In fact, that is the forecast from the National Hurricane Center, showing that major status likely in the Southwest Atlantic. And notice by the end of this cone, see how it starts to turn north. That is still the thought process here from our models. That is the thought process from all the experts. The question is, though, where is that turn? Today's European run did something a lot more like this, which would be well on the outside of this cone. Some model data on the other side of the cone. And, you put all that together with some human touch to it, and you get a forecast kind of like this. The point being, though, also, no one is in the cone right now. And if we did see direct impacts to the United States, it wouldn't be for about, another week to 10 days or so. So we're definitely getting closer in time here, but still plenty of time to track this storm. And you can see where it currently is, still well out here in the Atlantic. In fact, if I zoom out, it's only gotten about halfway of its journey from Africa to even the Antilles, and probably only about a third of the way from Africa to potentially the United States, if that's where the storm ends up going. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at satellite imagery. Let's show you some of the challenges for the storm ahead and also what it looks like right now, because we have seen further development and intensification of the storm this afternoon. Let's just zoom things out for a second, take a look at the Atlantic Basin as a whole, and a couple areas that we're watching. Obviously, Erin is this little spin right out here, and you can definitely see, I know it's small, we're going to zoom into it more here in a second, but starting to get its act together and kind of one of the lead waves of some of the other convection behind it. Look at this big wave rolling off of Africa right now. We've got some other little pieces of energy behind the storm. And also something to notice is the storm's actually pretty small right now. It's pretty small and compact. Comparatively speaking to some of these other waves. We also have a little area here moving into the Yucatan. That is actually tagged by the National Hurricane Center with a 10% chance of development. I'm not overly worried about it. It is going to try to sneak into the Bay of Campeche here, but pretty low chances there. If anything changes, though, obviously I'll update you. Also, plenty of thunderstorm activity here off the Atlantic coastline, and that's actually important. Looking at that right now, that's generally where Erin is going to be heading. And that is helping to really moisten up the atmosphere out here in the Southwest Atlantic ahead of Erin once it gets there. So right now, the storm is having to traverse through some pretty dry conditions out here. You can see, again, circle the storm for you, kind of in its own little bubble of moisture, but about to work into, and has already been working into, a very dry section of the Atlantic out here. All of these kind of red and orangish colors in front of the storm. It's about as dry of an atmosphere as you can get. Like I mentioned, though, in the Southwest Atlantic, this stalled out frontal boundary is helping to keep things moist out this way. And that's going to be one of the things that fuels Erin to eventually here strengthen into a hurricane and potentially even a major hurricane still on the table. Let's dive into the storm here. Here's what it looks like. Definitely better organized today than yesterday. Yesterday, it was a shell of a tropical storm. It was really getting eaten up by dry air and was passing over some cooler sea surface temperatures, which was decreasing instability and helping to keep the storm tame. Today, still dealing with dry air, but working into a part of the Atlantic that has warmer sea surface temperatures. We've been talking about that on the channel. We knew it was going to work into that environment, and because of that, you can see we do have this kind of bubbling up of convection right along the center of circulation. Now, something that's going to be important is the storm is a little lopsided right now. It's starting to get more of that shrimp look to it, where again, like this is, like I said, lopsided to the south. So should we see any relocation of the center, it probably would be in that southwesterly direction. And every wiggle south that this has on its journey westward has big ramifications on where this storm is going to go. So that's definitely something we'll need to keep an eye on here with the future of Aaron. And, we can start that now by kind of nowcasting it and taking a look at that satellite imagery. Speaking of those warm sea surface temperatures, let's go ahead and take a look at some of the analysis out here. And let me tell you why this storm is going to strengthen and has that high-end potential as well on the scale of intensity. Aaron's starting to strengthen, and one big reason for that are the sea surface temperatures that the storm is beginning to encounter, and will only really go up from here in terms of the threshold that this storm is going to have ahead of it due to these very warm ocean temperatures. Now you can see off the southeast coastline, one of the warmest parts of the Atlantic right now, at least in terms of anomalies, So all these red and orange colors you see out here, this is well above average sea surface temperatures. And the storm is going to be tracking right through that region over the coming days. You can also see it on just the raw data here. I mean, we've got sea surface temperatures up near 30 degrees Celsius. That's upper 80s in Fahrenheit. Only need the mid to upper 70s to even really support a storm, and we're well above that. So this is explosive levels of energy and fuel for Aaron and any other potential storms in this vicinity of the world to kind of take advantage of if it can do so. The other part of the forecast that is really, we'll call it conducive for developing the storm further is the upper wind pattern. Now, right now, let me back this up a little bit. This is from our icon model. Here we go this evening. Here's the storm. It's this little L here on the map down into the Atlantic. And these upper level winds, these are up near 200 millibars. So that's well up in the atmosphere, about as high up as you can get. That still impacts the weather at least. And you can see we are dealing with a little bit of shear off in that western and southwestern direction. That's why we do need to watch for any sort of reformation of that center, or maybe it gets pushed a little bit further south than currently expected by the models. That would have big ramifications on the forecast down the road. Now, here's what's going to happen through the coming days, though. The storm is going to get trapped under what we call ULAC, an upper-level anticyclone, upper-level high pressure, upper-level diffluence. You can call it whatever you want. It's the same thing, and that's air that's spreading apart here in the upper levels. And you can see it well on the map here. Remember, here's the storm with the L. I'll draw the upper-level flow here in more of this purplish color. These are what the winds are doing well above the surface here, above Aaron. And you can see it's spreading out in opposite directions. It's moving away from each other. And I always like to use the analogy, like if you're swimming in a pool, the atmosphere is the same way. So imagine you're swimming and you're moving water with your hands. Well, what happens? Water from below has to rise and take the place of that original water. And it's the same thing here with air in the atmosphere. What happens is the air gets removed. Air at the surface has to rise and take its place. That creates lower pressure down here where we are at the bottom of the troposphere. And that lower pressure means a strengthening storm system. Now, this general idea is going to continue throughout the next couple of days. And it gets trapped right under this thing. And this is really about as favorable of a wind environment in terms of wind shear as a storm can encounter. I mean, this is very strong diffluent flow, and it's happening at the same time the storm is moving into even warmer ocean temperatures. So that's why this storm has such a high ceiling, and it looks to maintain that even here off the southeast coastline. You can see the icon model gets this down into the 920s. That would be category 4, could be flirting with category 5 if we do get a storm of that strength. So we know we have warm ocean temperatures. We know we have a very favorable upper level wind environment. What about moisture? Now, that's what's kind of inhibiting the storm right now from becoming anything stronger. We've got, again, this storm that is running into some drier air. We saw that on satellite earlier, but I think that'll change. As we go down the road, you'll pause it right here. This is by next Monday. The storm gets in that part of the Atlantic I showed you already has thunderstorm activity, already moistening up the atmosphere. And at that point, we're going to have very warm sea surface temperatures, very favorable wind environment, and moisture and humidity is going to be increasing. And that's going to give this storm the opportunity to really explode in intensity by the end of this weekend and into the start of next week. And that's the same point that the storm is going to start its turn north. The question is where. So let's switch on over to the steering currents now and take a look at how that has changed since yesterday's video and how it's going to move the storm and its future track. The latest European model from this afternoon doing a pretty good job here at showing the upper level pattern ahead of this storm and how it's going to steer it. But more importantly, I think today is looking at how it's changed since yesterday. Now, if you've been, if you're a returning viewer, this isn't your first time here, you'll know we've been talking about kind of the tough part of this forecast. We've got a couple of different ridges of high pressure out here. I'll kind of draw them out here and draw the flow around these centers of high pressure. But notice there's a little bit of a gap here in between. That's the escape route. That's the off ramp, whatever you want to call it. That's where we're hoping Aaron will get shot back out to sea. Now, here's the problem. It's got to get there in time, and it's got to, be a big enough of an opening that the storm can take it. As we keep on moving ahead in time, watch what happens. These areas of high pressure kind of congeal back together a little bit, and you can see then the opening opens up a bit more on the European by this weekend. But here's the thing. The storm is so far south and the opening is so far north, they're not quite connected enough for it to be an easy escape route for Aaron. I've kind of used the highway analogy. If you're in, a little four-cylinder car and you're all the way in the left lane, and you've got traffic to the right and, it's a 5-lane interstate, you're not going to really be able to get to that off-ramp in time. You're going to struggle to get there. You're going to struggle to find that escape route. And that's what happens on the European model, at least today's run, is it fails to get that escape route. And notice what happens is the ridge builds back in, the Bermuda Ridge and a ridge of high pressure in the northeast here kind of connect together, and that just keeps pushing the storm west. And then eventually the storm kind of gets strong enough. It wants to pull north. The ridge breaks down just enough, but look at how close it gets. I mean, the outer bands from this would easily be impacting the Outer Banks of North Carolina. That ridge stays in place enough that this gets awfully close to southern New England and is still, generally speaking, an out to sea run. Now, it does get up towards Newfoundland and Labrador as well. And well down the road, 10 days from now, merges with this huge upper level low up into the northeast. But that's part of the forecast here, is that big upper level low as well. So we've got all sorts of pieces. We've got multiple ridges. We've got multiple upper level low pressure systems. How all of these interact is going to be so important to where the storm goes. Now let's look at the trend, because it's one thing to have, one model run that kind of changes the upper level pattern a little bit, but is this a trend with the European, or was today just a fluke? Well, let's take a look at it. This is multiple runs ago, kind of analyze the picture here. Remember, these areas of orange are high pressure. That's going to try to pull it towards the United States. We've got this big upper level low to the north, low pressure here. Those are going to try to pull this thing back out to sea. Watch the trends and let's see what gets stronger, the low pressures or the high pressures in the storm. Where does it move? Does it move closer to the off ramp or, further away from it? Well, we'll move it ahead. Here's a newer run, newer, and then the newest run of the European. So let's fly through that again. You can definitely see some interesting changes here. And the two big key changes here are the storm already starts further south and west, and we begin to see more of a connection between the ridging over the United States and that Bermuda high, which again would pull the storm closer to the United States. So that's the upper level pattern. That's how, the storm's going to get moved, and that's some of the changes we've seen. Let's take a look at the actual models now and show you how close some of them get and how far away some of them still are, and why we've still got a long way to go before we have a final answer on where this storm will end up. We already looked at the European, but let's take a look at it again. Here's the storm, a lot further west than some of our other guidance. In fact, here we go. This is next Thursday morning. The storm right offshore of North Carolina, clipping the Outer Banks with outer bands from this, and again, gets very close. Now, that's just one model. It's just one run of the European. What about the GFS model? Well, the GFS, a lot further away, and in fact impacts Bermuda and not even the United States really in any significant way. You can see how far offshore that storm is, or that model has Aaron there. Again, same time frame though. That'd be next Wednesday or Thursday at about the same latitude. Now, let's show you one more. This is the icon model. This is the one I showed you with the upper level map. And this one kind of an in-between the two, and it only goes out this far to next Wednesday evening. But I also want you to take away something from all three models. Look at how strong the storm is. I mean, all of them have at least a major hurricane, meaning category 3. Some of them getting up in that category 4, flirting with category 5 territory. And either way, whether this is offshore or not, this would bring huge surf, huge rip currents. This would bring beach erosion concerns as well, coastal flooding concerns, even if it's a bit offshore. But I mean, if the Europeans onto something and this thing trends further west, you've got a storm of that magnitude, that's big problems. Now, the good news is I still think no matter what, that we're, in a pretty safe place right now in terms of where the storm is going. Now, it's still more likely than anything this goes out to sea, I guess is what I was trying to get out there. Here's the latest ensembles from the European. Remember, the operational run, I'll draw it here, was kind of this black line that I'm drawing. It got very close to the Outer Banks, but, didn't quite make landfall. And that's well on the left-hand side, well on the western side of this envelope of ensembles. So the operational run right now is an outlier from its ensembles. Most of them bring this out to sea still. I'll show you this though. This is the trend in the ensembles, and let's do the same thing we looked at with the upper level map. How about the ensembles? This is an older run, newer, and newer. And you can see, I mean, I wouldn't say there's really a whole lot of a trend. And that's kind of, where we're at right now. Is the operational run shifted? It's not a trend, it's shifted. The ensembles, have maybe shifted that way a little bit, but we're going to need to see more runs of, things like today's afternoon Euro that brought this thing closer for it to become more of a concern. And we'll definitely keep on doing that through the coming days. But definitely a shift to the west in some of today's guidance and from some of our more reliable guidance. So we'll need to keep watching this storm for sure. I'll have you with daily updates here, obviously, on YouTube. So make sure that you're subscribed and you have that bell on for the latest notifications so we can take a look at more data tomorrow. All right, let's bring things on back home, take a look at what's happening over the lower 48 and how our weather pattern is expected to change over the next week. Still dealing with some showers and storms over the United States right now, but pretty typical summertime fashion at this point. I mean, it's August after all, it's warm, it's muggy, and we have definitely, like I said, plenty of storms working on through. Higher storm coverage today in the Northeast in the past couple. We do have a bit of a front trying to swing on through right now, this part of the country, and then down south, a lot of flow out of the Gulf, bringing plenty of activity as well on this Wednesday. Back up into the plains, also seeing some storms up into the Dakotas, Minnesota. That'll be a key theme here over the near future, and we'll definitely need to continue to watch potential severe weather up that way. Now, as for the pattern in general, where's it going? Well, we've got, we've kind of got two ridges over the United States, I should say. We've got one over the desert southwest here, and then we've got one over the southeast. That one's bringing flow up out of the Gulf, the other one bringing flow up out of the north. And as we go ahead into time, this is probably going to congeal into one big ridge over the east, and that's going to really warm us up. Here we go, right by this weekend. You can see that big ridge expanding eastbound and bringing some pieces of upper level energy on the northern side. So I don't want to sound like a broken record, but still need to watch for severe weather up into the Dakotas, Minnesota, places like Wisconsin, Iowa, and even portions of Michigan there. Going to continue to get these rounds of storms. But generally speaking, I think the big theme over this week is a big warm up in the east. Now, as we go further ahead into time, about 7 to 10 days from now, there are signs that this ridge is going to move back out west. Obviously, the elephant in the room is Aaron right there, right off the screen on the European, but that could bring more shots of cooler and drier air into the east, especially if we have a hurricane offshore going to also bring flow up out of the north. So probably some signs of relief around 7 to 10 days from now. But this weekend into early next week, looking quite hot. And as for what radar could look like here over that same time frame, I mean, pretty typical afternoon storms, complexes of severe storms up into the northern plains here, where again, we have some of those pieces of energy kind of moving through that could definitely spark strong to severe weather. And that's kind of the theme, folks. That just kind of keeps on coming. We've got the northern stream energy. We've got afternoon storms down south, and then obviously a big old hurricane here that we need to track over that same time frame. Let's switch on over now. Take a look at dew points, temperatures, and that rainfall forecast. Do we have that sign of relief, and how much rain can we expect over the next 7 days? The muggy weather, I think, is definitely here to stay for at least a time. Now, the Northeast going to get lucky once more. That front that's working on through right now is going to return some drier air by the start of this coming weekend. You can see the interior Northeast dew points down into the 40s and 50s. Yeah, that's quite comfortable really any time of the year, but especially this time of year, that's quite nice. Now, other than that, you can see the heat and humidity remains for most of us. Now, 7 to 10 days from now, you notice this is the ensemble view. So some members are definitely starting to crash it back down and getting a nice sweeping front, but we're just going to need more time again to watch how this upper level pattern plays out. Could we get a nice cool front or cold front or dry front, whatever it might feel like to work on through? Absolutely, we could. We're starting to get that time of the year. Those are going to become more common, but just not fully sold on that quite yet. Temperatures going to warm up big time this weekend. Notice all the red and the orange. That even hangs around into early next week. But then blue starts to work back in here into the east a little bit more by the time we go into the long range. Now, not quite as impressive on today's model run as yesterday's, but you definitely see right here in that 7 to 10 day range, we do get a shot of at least a little bit more average to below average air. And this time of the year, honestly, I mean, it's still hot, don't get me wrong, but as long as we're not wicked above average, temperatures are becoming more manageable as we go towards the end of August and especially into September. Before you know it, we'll be looking at fall foliage maps right around the corner. Rainfall, precipitation over the next 7 days, highest totals, again, going to be here where we have those complexes of storms up into the northern plains, and then those afternoon thunderstorms are going to definitely pile up to some areas of localized flooding even here into the east. Not seeing a well-defined big flooding event or anything like that, but important enough that we'll need to keep tabs on it. And obviously, whatever Aaron does will have probably a very big role in those precipitation forecasts. So obviously going to keep tracking that storm as well. All right, that's all I got for you on this Wednesday. A quick little side note here at the end. If I look a little dull or gray today, I apologize. One of my studio lights went out right beforehand, and obviously I didn't have time to run out and buy a new one, so I'll have to go do that now for tomorrow's video so I look nice and good and handsome again, right? But hopefully it's not that noticeable. Anyway, I'll have a great one. Stay safe, and I'll see you all tomorrow.